Okay, we're live for the 21st edition of the Data Value Show. And today it's all about the value of a data community. And who better to have to talk about data community is, would be Ethan. And that's who we've got. So here we go. Ethan's in the house. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Awesome to see you. Thanks for having me on the show.
No worries. It's a pleasure. It's all it's going to do is taking our chats to the real world now, because normally we just talk on our own over lunch or a beer or two. So yep. We can take our discussions to the wider audience. So, well, first of all, I probably everyone does know you, but I'll do a bit of background on how we first met. I think Joe introduced us on one of my trips. I was going to New York regularly. We caught up there, and now we're regular people that catch up together. Good friends now. So, Ethan, do you want to give, if everyone doesn't know, you want to give yourself a bit of background about who you are, what you do, what Portal does?
Totally. So I'm Ethan. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Portable. Portable is an ELT tool. We copy and paste data from SaaS applications and data warehouses. And our specialty is we do all the niche, weird systems that no one else wants to build integrations against. So you can kind of think about us like Fivetran, but all the stuff they don't support. So we have almost 1,000 integrations at this point, construction tools, everything you can imagine. So that's a business. Me personally, I love posting on LinkedIn. I do it because I enjoy the community aspect. It's like I actually enjoy the conversations, the talks, the learnings, the lessons. Like it's not. I don't go into it through the lens of I am right or anyone else is wrong or anyone else is right and I'm wrong. I go into it because it's a phenomenal place to have those types of dialogues. And webinars like this are another phenomenal place to do that. So I'm excited for the conversation today.
And I think probably let's start at the beginning. Well, the beginning of the low key meetup scene, and I think it was the tail end of all of the everyone being stir crazy, being stuck inside on the tail end of COVID. And I think you're definitely one of the first ones I saw. You kicked off these low key meetups. So tell us a bit more about them and how they came about and their purpose.
Yeah. So I've always been rewind. So I was a startup called Arbor. At Arbor, I would like put on events, like do fun stuff. I was like fixing up our office. I was literally like painting and plastering the walls because I was just like, oh, like this is our home. Like this is where we spend all of our time. We got acquired by LiveRamp, and I became the beer cart person. So I would literally walk around the office on like a Tuesday at 4 p.m. with a beer cart. I made hot dogs on Fridays. I like helped organize what we called the lounge in the office. So like to me, community is really, really important wherever I work. And I'm not doing it because it's like, it's good for business. I'm doing it because it's like, it's good for life. So to me, that's always been really important. We started Portable February of 2020. So we left, me and my co-founder Azim left in February 2020. We're like, all right, we're starting Portable. It's going to be awesome. That is exactly when the city shut down. New York City shut down because of COVID. So like a week later, the city shut down for a year, 2 years. So we had the benefits of becoming a fully remote company, but everyone saw the downsides of that as well, in the sense of that, like, yes, you can virtually connect with people, especially if you already know them, but that day-to-day camaraderie and just like ability to hang out and talk about stuff with people in your industry or in your company, gone. So I think, so about 2 years later, I started posting on LinkedIn all the time. Unrelated. That was more of just like how do we get people to hear about Portable? How does the social media thing work? I started to gain like a following of people that thought my perspectives and conversations were interesting. And about 6 months into that, I was like, I wonder if I can get all these people on LinkedIn to physically show up at a bar, because I'm still missing the whole social like community feel. So I posted a couple times being like, hey, who wants to come to a bar? I'm not going to buy your drinks. I'm not going to set up speeches. I'm not going to deal with sponsors. We're just going to show up at a dive bar and hang out. And it kind of just blew up from there. We had like 40 people the first time. Right now we have 1,200 people signed up for these things in New York alone. Like you started the same thing in London. We got, there's probably 30 cities around the world where people are now just like, buy your own drinks, meet other data people. And it's created a phenomenal sense of community that I love.
Yeah, no, and I think what you said earlier on was that you do it because it's fun, not for the business. But I think what has happened, and I think I've seen this as well, is if you do fun stuff, the business comes later. But if you're doing it motivated by just getting the business and having these presentations there and making everyone sit down and drilling this information into them, it's not. I don't think it works as well. I mean, they are useful. I mean, I've been to Matt Turk's one when he has them, and they have. I've learned some stuff from them, but I've been to a lot of really dull ones as well, where you just sat there and you just sat there and you're not actually socializing anyone. You might as well just be at home online watching the same thing, because you're not actually getting to talk to anyone. Or maybe at the end, and then there's a big queue for the food or a big queue for the beers, and it's not as relaxed and as informative, and I think it's valuable. I think I'd say as well. So, and I think the other thing you touched on there, and I did a comment on the post yesterday ahead of today's show, was I think I read a LinkedIn article that people find that office friendships, or people that friends at work that become mentors or become peers, or even become people that they trusted, people that they can get advice from. That ended really with that well, definitely during the COVID period, but then post-COVID, we now hybrid remote working is the norm now. So even if you do go in an organization, you're not going to be there the same day as everyone else normally, and someone else may have a different. So you're not going to get to see everyone. You're not going to have the same force multiplier. I'm going to use that word that you would have got from how it was when I grew up, so to speak. When I learned on the mean data streets at the beginning. I built up a great network of people that I could just call upon when needed for their advice. Yeah. And I think people coming into this industry now, they don't have that same luxury. And I think that if they don't have that same luxury, they're not going to be able to use that force multiplier. So I'm going to get it out there as much as I can. So it's the word of 2024. So what I mean, would you agree with that? Is that sorry, one of the outcomes that you've seen from your events?
So I think what you're describing is not sad. Like, sad's the wrong word, but anyone entering the workforce today, anyone joining a company that is growing quickly and doesn't have the time to actually sit down and force those mentorship types of relationships and conversations, which is very difficult in a virtual world. It's not being offered at your company anymore. So you have to go, you effectively have to create it on your own. Mm-hmm. So I think what you're seeing is conversations on LinkedIn, conversations like this, virtual conferences, in-person events, happy hours, skiing events. It's all these things that used to just be, oh, I need to go somewhere once a year to learn about writing better SQL statements. Mm-hmm. Today, that's not why people go to these things anymore. They go because they need some sense of community. They need some sense of mentorship and someone to call in a scenario where they're like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. Can you please help? And it's a lot easier to do that with someone that you've gotten coffee with, or that you walked around Las Vegas with during a conference, than it is with someone where you just check in every day on a video call and you say, yep, I'm still doing my work. So I think I don't think it's impossible to run a remote company. We are a remote company, but we've also kept our headcount really lean and really small because it allows us to if the number of people on our Zoom calls every month kept doubling, I don't know how you build relationships in a virtual world like that. I think it's almost impossible. I think that's why a lot of bigger companies have to go back in person. It's because it's very, very difficult to scale the virtual community.
Yeah, I mean we've had those challenges, and we haven't got the magic bullet or the magic answer, but we would do we did like a cards night, or we'd dial in social events where everyone could come into it. So some of them were quite fun. Some of them maybe not so, but it was you didn't know what would work and what didn't until you tried. So and I think the other thing is, you do need to have some element of getting everyone all together. We've got our Christmas party tomorrow. It's in London. If you were here, you had an invite. Honestly, you'd have been there. We'll have our own echo one when I'm back over. Right? Yeah. We'll have another one. that Christmas party and other social events. Yeah, we have an office now, so we do actually have somewhere people to come into, but because we hired during that period, not everyone is always accessible to get to that office. So we need to make sure you can have something that accommodates them as well.
Yep.
So and I think the other thing I just made a note is that what I've found, I mean, I've been doing this 30 odd years. All right. I've been in the data space quite a while, and I've met. I can go back and met a load of great people on that journey. I have to say, since LinkedIn, since that community, I've met a lot of other really clever people as well that I would never have the opportunity to meet them. If I think if you're fishing in a small pond, you're only going to get the fish that are in there. And I think LinkedIn, the community events is made it possible for you to make sure you're never the smartest person in the room. Make sure there's always someone that you could be learning from, but also give something back to the community as well, and pass on some of your knowledge. I think that's going to make
It's also like one of my favorite things about it too is like when you think about it, the New York low-key data happy hour scene. It's a bunch of people in New York and a lot of people that come through New York every once in a while. But it's very New York centric. The thing that I didn't realize when I started that was that you would start a community in London and that people would still kind of associate the two. So that if like someone coming from London was in New York, be like, hey, there's a similar thing, or like Amsterdam, same thing, or Denver, Atlanta, Raleigh. Like I'm excited over every summer I go down to North Carolina. I'm really excited to try and schedule that trip this summer around one of the low-key happy hours in Raleigh, because I know a lot of people down there. I see them at conferences and talk to them virtually, but like it'd be cool to actually show up in their backyard and hang out and kind of just mingle with people in that local community. And it's just a good excuse to meet people that all have something to talk about.
We should do a LinkedIn challenge for 2024. See how many meetups someone could attend in the whole year by just going one to another.
I think you and Joe are the only ones that have a chance of winning that. I haven't left New York in a while.
We'll have to get you to Europe some stage. Have to get out of your comfort zone of New York at some point. So, I mean, one of the things that we first started talking about at the beginning, and it was all a bit of fun, of when we were trying to dissect this modern data stack world and what was going to be next, and was it dead, was it not dead, and I think we both agree it had to change. All right, something had to happen. There needed to be simplification there. What we called it, we didn't really care too much if it was a modern data stack 2.0, 3.0. I think I even joked to calling it, 10.1 because it was a safe version of Oracle. It was a stable version of Oracle. So maybe that's by the time the modern data stack would get stable. And I think you went down there. It was going to be the post-modern data stack, but then were we going to go to the post-post or the post-post-post, or are we going to use what other mechanism we're going to show the evolution? So with the changes in the industry at the moment, we've seen a consolidation in the vendors out there. You're seeing the two big players adding more features to their products. So, which I think that's positive. There's a positive aspect for that, because it was too complicated. I think where that balance is of what just gets put into the one product and where you have that mix and match, I think that we'll have to see where that goes. I think, but so what do you see? How do you see it evolving in 2024? And I think you did a post that was very, very successful, I think, over the past couple of days, I think, on this topic. So you may be able to leverage some things from that.
Where do I start? Let me rewind like 10 years and actually talk about the modern data stack, because I think there's history here that's actually quite valuable in terms of like why it was valuable, what happened, where we are today, what's going to happen. So like 10 years ago, it's like, like having modular cloud components that allow you to store data for cloud processing, separate storage and compute, the ability to like visualize that data in a scalable, easy to use way, and the ability to copy and paste data, ELT it into the data warehouse. Those are great modular components of a modern data stack 10 to 5 years ago. It was amazing. All these companies were partners, like super, like none of them could succeed without the others. Like Looker needed Snowflake, Snowflake needed DBT, etc. Fast forward this was starting to pick up traction. Everyone was like, yes, we need a data team. And it was also like one of the hot things in the market. So everyone was like, we need a data team. Even if we don't know what it's going to do, we need a data team. Rates were low in the macro environment, which means valuations are very high and money's really cheap. So you can afford to buy stuff that you can't afford to buy right now. So what we effectively saw 5 years ago was kind of an explosion in two things. One was the size of data teams, or like the existence of data teams and the size of data teams. You go from having a one-person, super lean team building insights for the exec team to 10 people, 30 people trying to wrangle together 15 tools and build dashboards for the same executive team. So that's kind of what happened over the last 5 years from a people and investment perspective, which if you think about that, it's like, wow, like all this money is flowing into data tools. Let's fund that. Like, let's get more data tools. So while that was happening, all this money was going into analytics engineers, data analysts, et cetera. Everyone in the venture world loved the idea that you capitalize on that. So they started funding a ton of data startups. And what that caused was a couple things. One, unbelievable innovation. So like if you actually think about all the components of data, a lot of things were being done with scripts. So like rewind probably end of 2019, 2020, the whole concept of reverse ETL or just getting data out of a database or data warehouse, up until that point, warehouses didn't have as much information, but like now more and more information was getting piped in, but people just have Python scripts to get it out. So it's like, wow, wouldn't it be great if that was just a feature of a reverse ETL tool or a data warehouse or an ELT tool? Like, that's amazing. We were able to uncover that over the last 5 years. I think what we also saw was a lot of overfunding into these into companies in general. I'm not just saying reverse ETL. That's one of them. But what you saw was all these people saying, hey, that's a Python script. That's a Python script. That's a Python script. And every time anyone identified a Python script that didn't have a SaaS offering, they'd raise $100 million or $50 million. And what you saw was super cool innovation in terms of what are all the technology we could use, but not like, and you had these people that hypothetically were buying it, but it was all because money was extremely, extremely cheap. So what you saw was an explosion of tools with very, very large marketing budgets selling into these data teams that were very large for what they were doing. And it was still all being stuffed into this one term called the modern data stack, which if you rewind 5 years ago was actually just like 3 or 4 tools being like, hey, like if you buy these 3 tools, you can do insights quickly. So that's what happened about a year ago. That all changed pretty like a year and a half ago. It all changed pretty heavily with a combination of rates going up and just the market uncertainty. So rates go up. It's a lot more difficult to get access to capital. The buyers of data tools, the people that hire their data teams, are now looking around being like, we have to cut costs. Like we can't do this because our valuation can't justify it. And they look around and they're like, we have a 20-person data team. And we're spending $150,000 per person on this team. You're talking millions and millions of dollars, and I can't point you to the revenue coming from this team. So a lot of those teams, unfortunately, but realistically, have been downsized significantly and are still being downsized. So like we saw that happening. Because that's happening, a lot of the vendors that were banking on those teams buying their tools and spending more money are looking around being like, wait a second, all this money that was being spent on our tools is now not as accessible. Those teams, the vendors are now worried about, okay, great, where's all this money going to come from? And they had hired their own team to build a bunch of new stuff. And now they can't get access to capital because capital is so expensive. So right now, I think we're in this really interesting phase of practicalism. I don't know what the right word is for this. Pragmatism.
Yep.
Where it's like data teams are being held accountable for how much does your data team cost to run, people and headcount, people and tools, and what value is it actually driving? Like that people are actually being held accountable for that now. And vendors,
I think that's good. I think that's actually a good thing. And that's I think accountability had been missing for a little while. Sorry, Karen.
So it's interesting that you say that because in-house data teams for 5 years were unaccountable. They could do whatever they wanted and they could grow but people like you guys and any consultant out there, every time you do a project, you have to make a business case. So like, I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned around how do you justify the existence of a data team. Like there is a way to justify it. Like look at any consultant. They're out there being like, hey, here's the revenue you're going to drive, the cost you're going to save from doing these projects. But I would say, so that's what's happened is now, and what's effectively causing is a lot of these company vendors that all raised a ton of money and all partnered with each other because they each believed they had $1 billion revenue opportunity, are now looking around being like, I need revenue faster. All these budgets just got cut in half or by 80%. Where is that revenue going to come from? It's going to come from my partner's revenue. So now what you're starting to see is, and it's kind of the rationale behind why a lot of these vendors are now going after the customers and the features of their partners, it's because they need to find the revenue, or they fail. So that's what we're doing now.
Yeah, and I think I've been making some notes. You touched on some great points there going through that. I mean, you're right. The only way of getting extra revenue is put the prices up, and we've seen that. You know, that they've changed the pricing models, and because not I suppose nearly so desperate, but that's the only lever they've got left now. I mean, they've cut the costs. You know, the only way of making more money from what they've got is increasing their prices, because they're not going to be able to sign new people up, because people aren't signing up to these products now. What they're going to go with what they've got, at least for a little bit, sweat it, I think. So someone's commenting on my lovely purple shirt. You know, wear the brand today. You know. I can't see which LinkedIn user it was, but yeah, I think there's some other things that you mentioned there as well. And this is an observation that I've made is some of these companies that got all that money. I think the founders that actually got in there at the beginning have lost control of the destination of that company, and they would have all been technical people. And I think architecture of the products took a back seat, and I think the marketing of their products took the front seat, and I think the balance was wrong. You know, from looking under the hood of some of the products out there that have been around for a while, they just haven't evolved, and other ones have caught them up. And it didn't have to be that. And if they carried on building that product and adding more features and making sure, I do believe that's probably the founders lost control because it was no longer their money, and the VC companies were taking the destination or driving destination, and they don't understand the technology as much. So all they understand is just selling it. So I think that's something that has definitely happened. And I think the ones that have been leaner out there, the ones that haven't borrowed so much money, have got control more of their destination, and you'll probably find that their products will last the where others will fail, so that they'll last a duration and survive.
One interesting point about that is, have you read Charles Darwin's Origin of Species?
No, I haven't. No.
So everyone thinks about survival of the fittest as like there's some correct answer. If you actually read this book, the most fascinating part to me is it's whatever company or animal or whatever it is most fit for the environment it's living in. So if you think about it, like rewind 2 years ago, everyone thought at Portable we were absolutely insane because we had not raised 2 years ago, we'd raised absolutely no money. We were 2 people, entirely bootstrapped. And in a world of low interest rates and high growth and all that type of stuff, like we're not going to be the fastest ones. Like we are going to lose. And that was the bet. That was, to a certain extent, like that's the bet that we made. Like we made that bet. We knew that, like, yes, it would be a much more uphill battle if we end up in that environment for an extended period of time. Whereas a lot of other people made the bet that the environment was going to remain consistent. And I don't think it was the wrong, or looking at it now, it was the wrong bet. But with the information people had at the time, I don't know if it was the wrong bet. I think that's kind of the lens to look at it through, is like 3 years ago, like, why would you believe that anything was going to change?
No one did. Everyone thought we'd carry on. So it's an interesting point. So pop quiz. So say, for example, you've been given that 20 million, 30 million. That what would you spend it on? What would you have done differently if you had that money? What's prevented your runway? And I've got some views, but I want to see what you say. Actually,
what would I have spent the money? As Portable, an ELT company.
Yeah.
The wrong answer, in my opinion, is just staffing up a very large engineering team to try and build and support connectors. It's a slippery slope. It is the way every other company builds integrations, and it's how you end up with 100 connectors and an army of engineers maintaining them. That's the wrong way. Sales, like go to market efforts, like I've learned a lot in the last 2 years about marketing. I probably could I've spent pretty much nothing, like $0 in 2 years on marketing.
That's where I was going with the question, actually, because I know that you've actually absolutely smashed the marketing. It's everyone knows who you are. Everyone knows who Portable are. You haven't paid for sponsoring Snowflake events and Databricks events, and paid for Joe to travel around the world. Maybe some companies have done that as well. You haven't had that. You've worked smarter, and I think that's I think what the benefit of not having that massive pile of cash, because you had to work. And I think it's the same thing with us. We're bootstrapped, no debt, as an organization, company, and self-funded. What would have we done different? I've done many things, probably done a few things different, but it's a whole learning curve. But I think if we'd had a load of money come in at the beginning, I don't think we would have spent it in the most wisest way. And I think because it's your own money, and you're accountable for it and accountable for the team, you probably make more safer decisions.
One of the best places that I have spent money and I would spend money, and kind of going back to how people can think about their data teams as well, is contractors. Because when I think about what I've done over the last 4 years, from a marketing perspective, from a sales perspective, from a product perspective, we've taken a slower approach to learning stuff, but we learned the right way to do SEO, to do events, to do product development, etc. And a phenomenal thing about hiring contractors that are an expert in a project, whether it's SEO or data or legal or IT or whatever it is, growth, you can effectively hire them, learn unbelievably quickly over the course of 6 months about what the best practices are, see if it is working when it comes to, okay, great, is SEO working? Is outbound? We started doing automated outbound. We were paying for a tool to help us do outbound. Learned enough of a lesson to know that, at least for the current product we're selling in our current motion, not a good place for us to double down. So I think that's one place where spending more money to learn faster would, even today, that is something that I have no problem spending money on. And I think and I think the data world's very similar in that respect. It's you don't just hire 5 people to build a data stack for you and then figure out what it's going to do. Make the 3-month bet or make the 6-month bet. Figure out if it's actually going to be valuable. If not, throw it all away. Literally go back to nothing. Go back to Excel or Google Sheets. So that I would say that's the not correct answer, but hiring more engineers to build more connectors, wrong answer. Hiring contractors to help us learn, that are experts in whatever it is, whatever aspect of marketing, sales, customer success, support, growth, etc. The learnings are the thing that gives me more information to make better investments going forward.
Totally agree, and the same thing for us. We went that fractional route for we had a fractional legal person, a fractional marketing CMO, a fractional CFO, and gradually we've learned enough from them that we don't need them. So the marketing one we've dialed down now, because doing all right on the marketing front. But for the chief CFO, we've just gone for a full-time CFO now. So a permanent CFO. We wouldn't be able to do that right at the beginning. Maybe it wouldn't be good to go and spend that much money at the beginning. But we've reached a time where it's leveling up. I like to refer to it. It's like a game. It's like playing a game. All the different powers you've got, you level them up at different points to make sure you can beat the boss man at the end. I think that is the same with business. And I think it's the same. You've also sort of like done a semi bit of marketing for us, which is, when you're going out and building your own data platform, you don't need to go and buy or hire a full-time team, 5, 6 people full-time. You need the right people at the right time, and that's going to build you some good foundations that you can build on top of yourself with a smaller team. But then they will learn from you. We always, wherever we go, we upskill or knowledge share to whoever we're working with, and make sure that they're left with a lot more knowledge than when we started. And then you just need someone like that to get the experts in when you need them. You don't need them all the time. So I think it's it's a balancing act, isn't it? I mean, I think there's a comment here from Paul Sargent saying founders usually lose control, once they raise the money. So so there's a good reason to try and do it. Go as far as you can on your own, or at least have a really good understanding of what your business is and what you're going to spend that money on.
I wouldn't generalize enough to say when people raise money, they lose control. It's when you have the money influence your decision of what to do next is when you've lost control. If you know what you want to go spend $50 million on, and you know that you need $50 million to do so, like you're in control. You raise that money and you understand the implications of it. I think the number of people over the course of the last 3 years who said we took the money because someone offered it to us was not the right answer, in my opinion. That's when now you're trying to figure out, what do I spend this money on? What are the new implications for my business?
I think Matt Turk did a post, I think it was last night, I reposted it, which was there's lots of founders out there that thought they were running a marathon, and now they found out they're running an ultra marathon. And I quite like that, because it's like the SAS when they're doing a training or something like that. They don't tell you how many miles you're running. Right, okay, we've got to reach that. Right, now we're going to do another 10 miles. Just to keep, and there's a point, and I think a lot of that is looking. Well, the SAS is looking to see when people actually, can no longer go on anymore. I don't know if the founders. I'm sorry, I don't know if the VC companies have got the founders are doing that as well. Thinking, right, we'll get rid of them soon, or they'll give up soon. These founders, but and I think the I'm going to apply a part on there, and this advice I've given in the past is, enjoy the journey. Because you may get to that destination, it may not be what you want anyway. So at least you haven't wasted your whole life on that route to that destination, which you may want to change for another destination then. So top advice is just make sure you enjoy the journey, and if you are going to take someone from VC, make sure you know what you're going to spend it on. Don't just spend it on wild parties and sponsoring Snowflake and Databricks events, because they're expensive to sponsor. Whereas if you sponsor the AIT,
if you are throwing really, really, really nice, like fully sponsored events in New York, make sure to let me and Chris know.
Exactly. Yeah, we come to them. We had a really good one. I mean, give a plug for it. Data Galaxy, went to their one. Brilliant views, lovely food, lovely cocktails. Did you see the presentation? I can't remember that presentation. Anyway, there was drinks and food were good. So there's going back to our topic, and I'm sure it will go off. We'll take us that route anyway. But generative AI. You can't have a show now without bringing up generative AI, and how do you think it's going to add more value to the data community?
So there's like the easy answers of what I think everyone thinks is going to happen, which is it's going to start writing your SQL queries for you. If you actually think so let's say it's going to. I like to think about it this way. Let's just wave a magic wand and just assume all these things actually happen. It writes all your SQL queries for you. It builds all the connectors. So if you want to pull data from anything, whether it's a file, an API, a database, and put it into a centralized place, you just go AI, get all this data every day and put it into my data warehouse. Amazing. Then you can ask it, build me my dashboards. Like, answer this question, XYZ. And all of that magically, you just wave a magic wand and your data team's effectively gone. I don't think that adds a lot of value. I know that sounds crazy. Like, it saves costs, but like, you didn't need the 10-person data team anyway. You needed one. So I think, and even if it does add value, maybe it doubles the value. Maybe it streamlines things 50%, 100%, whatever it is. the real value problem with data teams right now, if you were to take most data teams and you were just like wave a magic wand, AI could do this instead. Now you have your 1,000 dashboards all managed by AI. You don't need 1,000 dashboards. That's stupid.
Yeah.
So I actually believe if you think about where we should be spending our time when it comes to using AI or using using our own brains to actually create value in the data world, there's incremental value to be created in how do you manage a data stack? Sure. But there's exponential value in trying to figure out what are the most important questions to answer inside of this business and how do we use data to automatically answer those questions in a repeatable way. So like where I would split it into two. One is everyone right now is just so excited about automating away the data stack. I personally am orders of magnitude more excited about helping the business find the next question to ask, because you can get the answer. Like someone just pay Chris, like pretend like Chris and Lead Data are AI. You could just pay them and they can answer your question. Like they will. So it's a question of like, if you can't find the really high value questions to ask, it's not worth your time. Just like it's not going to be worth your time doing it with AI. So I would say that that's the biggest opportunity for us with AI is going into an e-commerce company and saying, okay, great, I've looked at all your information. Like, here are the actual places that you should be worried about, and here are the things you should be most excited about. Like, double down on retargeting on this subset of your website, and make sure to start double clicking into these costs, because why are you spending so much money on returns? So like, that's the type of stuff where if you can find the right questions to ask, how you answer them, AI will help streamline for sure. But if you ask the wrong questions, it doesn't matter.
No, exactly. You need to know, you need to know what questions to ask before you can even move forward. And I think that's something that always gets overlooked, because if you ask stupid questions, you get stupid answers. If you don't ask the right question, you get the wrong answer. So I think I see it more as being a co-pilot. And if it can make me more efficient during my day of doing my PowerPoint presentations, creating some emails that go out, or maybe polishing up a description of something I'm building and make it sound a bit better. Do a bit of marketing stuff, maybe. I think it is going to add benefit, but in the wrong hands, it's not going to. It's only going to go in that right hands. It's only going to give benefit because I know how to co-pilot, and I think that's the thing I like to think of it as. All we're doing is co-piloting it. It's never going to be the full pilot. It's never going to take off. It's just always going to be your co-pilot. And I think it will help you, work smarter. And I think the last thing which would be a good byproduct of that is, with that headcount we've got, we'll have more business thinking people. So people actually in the business that have that understanding of what they want to achieve, but not having to have an army of people to do it for them. And maybe the money you would have spent on the team that you would have had in the technical team can then you better use for a data thinking business person. Yeah. Sorry?
Sponsoring skiers and data.
Exactly. I mean, that would be a very worthy course. If anyone hasn't booked their tickets for Skiers and Data, the website will be available at the end. We'll hope to see you there. I mean, Joe just said, no, yo, Joe, how you doing? We've got a good question here from, and I like this one. And we can go around. I think we can go around in circles because I think it just everything relates to everything. Is data will add value to the AI, not the other way around. I think without data, there is no AI. So I think you're definitely right. But I think once AI is being trained by that data, then that AI is then being used for something else. So I think it's that full circle. But I've got into many debates recently of the difference between data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. So there's many views on this stuff. What would you say about that? What would you say about
that? I think it's a combination of, you need data, you need AI, and you need business context. Like, someone has to be the person that says, hey, this is actually important. And I believe data people are very well positioned to be able to harness both data and AI. The question is, are they well positioned to harness them to actually solve business problems is the open question that I think a lot of people should be spending their time focused on. Because if you're phenomenal with Python, or you're phenomenal with SQL or database administration, like a lot of that stuff's going to get streamlined. It's going to become more productive, as Paul mentioned here. But it's like, if you can up level and start thinking about, if like, kind of imagine this. So you're inside of a company. It's a 100-person company. You have 30 salespeople, 30 HR people, that's 60 people, and 40 people in IT and services, everything else. If you're the data team and you're a 5-person data team right now, and you want to add as much value as possible, where is that value going to come from? Like, it's effectively going to come from helping the sales team so they don't have to have 30 salespeople, helping the HR team so they don't have to have 30 HR people. And what you need to be able to do is you need to be able to actually harness AI and data and a knowledge of the business to actually take responsibility from the sales team, or take responsibility from the HR team, or give them leverage, as another way of putting it. If you can do that, the data and AI team, or whatever you want to call it, can start to add very, very serious value to the business, but you have to be doing it through the lens of marketing, sales, hiring, employee retention, strategy. And a lot of people aren't thinking about expanding their own scope, and they're just focused on managing their SQL statements. And that you're not going to get any more value out of more efficient SQL statements.
Right. So I like Paul's point there. A fool with a tool instead of fool. I like that. And I think productivity brings up there. And the notes I was just making there is, and use that example. You got the 100-person team. You got 100 people. How you allocate them. You could mix and match to get the best efficiency or the best outcomes from your team. But if you imagine out there, how many data teams, how big's your backlog? How many things are actually on that backlog? And it never ends. You never get to the end of it. And I think there's two reasons why I think it takes a long time. And there's not a lot of agreement between everyone, and that slows down delivering. But there's just not enough hours in a day and not enough people to spend it to go and do it. So if you're able to use automation, use generative AI when needed, or AI, or a co-pilot approach, and that means that your backlog's never that, you're never a mile long. It's manageable because you keep on top of it, and you're able to release new changes for the business weekly. Or maybe start with fortnightly. No normal company. I don't know. I haven't seen many companies that have got that level of automation that they can actually release new product, or maybe apart from yourself, Ethan, with all your connectors coming out. But I mean, in a large organization,
6 more connectors since we started this conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just kidding. On average, probably, but not.
that reminds me of Duck Data, which is one of the characters from Scott Taylor, and he more data. There's even more data now. If anyone has seen that, check out Scott Taylor's the journey to the center of the truth. It is very entertaining. I might put it in the chat a little later. So we've gone off. We're going off. I'm trying to think whether I covered my notes. So I think with in summary, generative AI is going to help us work smarter. I don't think it's going to replace all our jobs. And if you're asking stupid questions, it's going to give you stupid answers. So this is probably another favourite topic of ours. And again, they're probably a little bit loaded questions. So what provides more value, the in-person events or the online data events?
I like the in-person events a lot more than the virtual ones. I love virtual events. I think when it comes to professional skills, online video content, YouTube, LinkedIn conversations, it's the best way to learn right now. I think a lot of written content is going to turn into garbage with AI. Like, even I use it to write some pretty mediocre content. But if you think about it, it's like online video content of people actually having conversations and talking about things. Like, it's free, it's accessible to everyone. You can get really, really smart people in a room with minimal overhead. It's awesome. I love it. from a professional perspective. It's very difficult to, it's not impossible, but it's not the same to bond over a virtual conference video chat than it is to bond in person. So like I would say professionally, like skill set wise, virtual. In like personally, in-person events are orders of magnitude more valuable. And professionally, from a like true network perspective, like when I think about the word networking, I don't think about it as oh, I'm going to meet this person, talk about professional stuff. It's like actually becoming friends with people. And I think the best way to do that is in person by far.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a bit of a combination. I think one feeds the other, because I think I've met a lot of people on the online events or shows like this that are then think, okay, right. And after seeing them, you think you know them anyway. You feel you know them, and we do meet them. It's you know that it'd be good to go to a in-person event and catch up with them. So I think they do feed in each the others. I think the other thing I've noticed though is, the really big events. I'm not going to name them, but one was in Vegas, one was in San Francisco. They're there's not much. It's great to meet the people there, but for the cost, for the cost of going and attending it, and then how many sessions you go to watch and which sessions you watch, and the sessions are normally very much geared up to the vendor that's sponsoring that particular event, and very much maybe a bit of backslapping and look how great we are with customer success here, customer success there, never any customer failures. You don't really get the truth, and it's the same. It's a bit stale, I think. So yeah, I'm hence starting the Skiers in Data conference, which is another shameless plug as well. But I think the jokes are that the feedback we got from that was, this was it wasn't just pushed by one. There was different vendors there, obviously, but it was it was a good conversation. I think Big Data London, it's because it wasn't a and Val, just hi Val, I just saw your comment. You reminded me as well. Big Data London, that was quite non-vendor. Every vendor was there, but it wasn't just one vendor that was hosting. So I think that gave it a bit more authenticity. And then I must be to Day-to-Day Texas. So that must be Lynn Bender. So that's highly recommend the in-person event at Day-to-Day Texas. He was saying, just the comment there saying that they didn't want to go virtual. Put it on the screen because the attendees didn't want that. And I think having been to that one, are you coming this year? You going? Oh, sorry, next one in January.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Oh, well, we're going to make that happen. Lynn, get Ethan there. We'll sort of. That was a good event.
Part of it to me though is like, I wish in Vegas we could just have like data week, and I could not pay $2,000 to go, and everyone still showed up and did their sponsored happy hours or sponsored like day events. Like vendors will spend money to get people in a room and try to add value. But if you made it more like anyone can sponsor whatever they want at that place, but people just got to pick what they go to, like then it will default back to either the events that are the most fun because people spent an ungodly amount of money on them, or the ones that add the most value. And it'll like events will live and die by whether or not they're actually valuable. I think right now what we're seeing is, and I think that's what you see with a lot of smaller events that have become big over time. It's because they won on how do you actually create value from this event. But we have a low-key virtual conference. We didn't do one this quarter, but we're going to do another one next quarter. How would we do a low-key happy hour virtual?
Why don't we have a little booth at there or something where there's a laptop there where people can come in? It's going to have a connection. You have a connection to anyone that wants to see what's going on, and or even connected to all the other happy hours going on at the same time around the world. So you can. It probably won't go well.
We'll do ours at 8 p.m. That means London is going to be
Oh yeah. No, it's getting late. It's in 1 a.m, I think, by 8 p.m. So,
but what I would say here is, if you cannot attend in person, message me on LinkedIn, because I have a playbook, and you should just start the low-key data happy hour in your city. It costs you absolutely nothing. You just find a bar, start inviting people online. If you tag me and Chris in your invite, like, I'm happy to reshare it with my network.
Yep, and me too as well.
Find other people in your town or city. That's why it's so great, is it costs nothing. And there's probably, wherever you live in the world, there's someone else that would like to talk about data and buy a beer or buy a soda and hang out. So there's nothing stopping this.
Well, I think that's a really, really good point. I think that must be JT. We'll all drink beer at home and chat on Zoom. That's what COVID was. That's what we did then. Where was I going? There's a lot of it's good to just start your own one up, and if you've got, I think JT did one locally to where he is. I know that I think someone in Helsinki was asking me some questions on a post I did the other day. I think it's a friend of Joe's, a couple of the guys. Although he's got a parrot in his name, I can't remember for everyone has that little note there, has an emoji as part of the name. He has a parrot in there. But yeah, so starting your own one is a good. Oh, anyone do one in Edinburgh? I don't know.
Oh, I have not heard of one in Edinburgh. I would love to go to one in Edinburgh. I went to a wedding in Edinburgh, and it was awesome. I want to go back, but
there you go. Well, Paul Sargent, if you're based in Edinburgh, reach out to Ethan. He'll not only give you the playbook, he'll also want to come back and visit as well. You've never with a special guest one time. I don't mind going to Edinburgh as well. So yeah, we'll come up. You do want Edinburgh, we'll come and visit one time.
I love it.
So I think Matthew Mullins, I think he's talking about there's ones in Raleigh and Atlanta located on a fire.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but the Raleigh one seems like it might be almost as large as the New York one right now.
Really?
I haven't been marketing as heavily recently. But yeah, the Raleigh, if you're ever in Raleigh, and Atlanta is newer. Matt's been putting the one on Atlanta. But yeah, those are big data scenes and awesome communities to check out.
I think there's definitely a need for that. I know you've done it before. That directory, you get that directory out to everyone, and I might even choose some of my visits based on where they exist or not.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've covered the main points that are on there, but I'm probably looking into 2024. I mean, we've covered Gen AI. I mean, the companies out there and the what runway they've got left and things like that. Do you think there'll be a bit of a reduction in the number of companies that are operating this space? A bit of merging, consolidation?
Some will fail in the shorter term. I think some will know that they're going to fail and sell. I think others will just sell just because there's synergy. I think a lot won't die in the next year. I think a lot will continue to survive, even though they don't have a clear path to grow, just because they have a lot of money. And I don't think they want to let go of their business. I think the biggest thing, like a couple other trends I'm seeing right now, like a lot of in-house data people are becoming freelancers because of all the stuff we talked about before, in the sense of like, hey, it's like hire a contractor, scope things out for 3 to 6 months, or consult, like depending on, like you could scale that up and scale it down depending on your company. Like if you need a 30-person team for 6 months, great, you can get that. If you need a half a person for 2 weeks, you can get that. So like, I think that's one of the big trends that we're seeing in the actual like talent pool. It's
interesting because in the UK, with that before setting up this company, I was a contract for 20 years. I only had one permanent job. I had one permanent job that I haven't hired myself, so that was it. So that was working for Cognos. I was freelance ever since. But there were tax advantages back then of being you were treated as a company. It's no longer the case over here now. You're treated as an individual and taxed on that individual, even though you're taking the risk of being a freelance. So it's taken the benefits, and a lot of companies won't hire you as a contractor unless you go under inside IR35 is what it's called in the UK. That means that you're paying pretty much the same tax you would have been as an employee. Is in the US? It's different, is it? So is it's still advantageous to be a contractor? from a tax point of view?
So to the best of my knowledge, from a tax perspective, you could either set yourself up as a corporation, like a C corp, and this is not legal advice, but you can either set yourself up as a C corp. That's what like most tech companies do, and then your company's paying taxes. There's also, you could set up like an LLC or an S corp. If it's like just you freelancing, you don't get benefits, but you can typically work with. You could work with 10 customers. You could work with 2. You could work with, so like you have a lot more flexibility. And I think that's the part that's appealing to people is if you add up the hours in a week, let's say it's 40. A lot of freelancers realize that if they work 80, they can make twice as much. And they're like, I'm going to just do that. But if you add that up, it's like 5 hours of someone's time is actually worth more than 1/8 of their salary was before, because that company that hired a full-time person didn't actually need to be spending $150,000 on an in-house person. Instead, they really should have been spending a subset of that on someone on retainer. So like, I think the idea of having someone on retainer for 5 hours a month, or 5 hours a week, you can spend a little more and then like have the flexibility, and it kind of works out well for everyone, especially if you have high throughput.
We create something called the data care pack as a marketable thing, which is exactly that. You know, it's that buying some time in a retainer. It normally happens after we finish delivering a big one. They want to have that continuity or assurance, really. You know, after it's there that they've got someone that they can call in and tweak things as they need to. So and I think that's a good approach for companies to maximize what they get from their money they're spending.
And the person they're working with is doing it 10 times over. So like what they're doing, like they've already, like them coming in, standing up, like in most scenarios, whenever anyone asks me like, hey, I'm hiring my first data person, my first question is always, if your goal is stand up a data stack, don't hire a full-time person to do that. Hire a contractor or a consultant who specializes in doing that. Stand it up over the course of 3 to 6 months, see the value, because standing up a data stack is, from a skill set perspective, is very, very, very different than being a business analyst or a data analyst whose job is build strong relationships with execs. Like a consultant or contractor can come in and stand up a data stack this week for you better and cheaper than your full-time person is going to do, and then get everyone on the same page about it. And then they can also probably help you hire the right person to actually take it over. So
a good analogy popped into my head. You're saying that is, you don't go and hire a builder that specializes in foundations and concrete to go and do your decorating. So you get the specialist in, and then afterwards, when it's a BAU, you just need to maintain it. You just need the people that can make what they put in place pretty and build on top of it. So I fully support that. So we're coming up near on time, and I'm starving, hungry as well. I need to get some food. So if anyone wants to reach out to you, where can they best find you, Ethan?
On LinkedIn. Ethan Aaron on LinkedIn. If you want to email me, it's ethan@portable.io. Shocking.
And if you want to see me and Ethan, I think there's going to be a low-key meetup next week in London. In New York. Is that right? Is that happening?
We'll keep you posted on this.
Okay. If not, you'll find what you both is in New York. You just need to not go through that. Just hook us up. We'll meet you in a bar. Wednesday's a good day. We're normally out with JT, who's listening as well. We have a regular catch up. And he's threatening to bring Lego down next time. There's a bit of a craze around on LinkedIn at the moment of Lego data strategy kits and Lego entity matching kits. So,
I love it.
Yeah, it's a bit of fun. But thank you.
If on LinkedIn, that means it's true.
Yeah, it is true. It is true. Unfortunately, they're out of stock at Lego. I try to get them, and they don't actually exist. So I'm just going to give it a shout out next week. Next week we got Jay Palmer, who's been on a few things up together. He was at Skid last year. He was at Big Data London on the panel. So always a interesting chat. And we're going to talk about the value of a data architect. They're a dying breed now. Everyone wants to be an engineer. No one wants to be architect. So we're going to discuss what the future of the data architect role is as well. But yeah, Ethan, thank you very much as always. Always a pleasure chatting to you. It was great chat, and I will speak to you again soon, no doubt. Anyway,
That sounds great. Really appreciate you having me.
no worries. No, thanks again. It's been great. All right, well, we'll call it a wrap, everyone. We'll see everyone next week for a chat with Jay about the value of a data architect. All right.
See y'all.
See ya.
Bye.